I wake up every morning at 5:47 a.m. Not because I need to, because my body refuses to forget who it used to be. For 32 years, I punched in at a factory gate before sunrise. Steel doors, fluorescent lights, the smell of oil and overheated metal. Even now, retired and technically free, my eyes open at the same minute, as if someone is still checking clipboard somewhere. The house is quiet at that hour. Not peacefully quiet, empty quiet. The kind that echoes even when nothing moves. I sit on the edge of the bed and wait. There's a pause every morning, 10 or 15 seconds where the room tilts slightly, like a picture frame not quite straight on the wall. The doctor calls it orthostatic hypotension. I call it my reminder not to rush. Linda used to tease me about it. Careful, she'd say, still half asleep. You're not 25 and late for work anymore. Linda has been gone 6 years, 4 months, and 11 days. I know because I stopped counting weeks after the first year. But days still come to me uninvited. Cancer doesn't care how carefully you live or how many bills you pay on time. I pull on my robe, the same one threadbare at the cuffs, and shuffle toward the kitchen. The hallway creaks in 2 places. I fixed one of them in 2012, left the other. You need to leave some things unfinished or you'll go crazy. The refrigerator hums. The old one, white, slightly yellowed. Still working despite Melissa suggesting we replace it for efficiency every Thanksgiving. The microwave clock blinks 6:02, even though it is 5:58. It's been blinking since the power outage last winter. No one bothered to fix it. I measure the coffee grounds carefully. 2 little scoops, not heaping. Linda liked hers weak. I never did, but habits survive people. At 6:15, I line up my pills on the counter. White oval, yellow round, half a blue one I split with a dull kitchen knife. I take them with water from a chipped glass, the one with the faded logo from a conference in 1998. Quality is everyone's responsibility. I always like the irony. I sit at the kitchen table and look around. This kitchen cost $27,400 to renovate in 2011. New cabinets, solid wood, not that pressed junk. Linda picked the handles. I installed the backsplash myself to save money. My knees still remember that week. There's a small stain near the sink from when Melissa spilled red wine during her temporary stay, back when Aaron was between jobs. She laughed it off, never cleaned it properly. It's still there. Temporary became permanent quietly. No announcement, just more shoes by the door. More opinions about how things should be done. At 7:02 a.m., footsteps come from upstairs. Aaron first. Always Aaron. He walks heavy, like the floor owes him rent. The bedroom door opens, then the bathroom. Water runs. The house adjusts itself to him. Morning. Melissa calls down a minute later. Her voice is bright, practiced. She's already on her phone. Emails, messages, something important. Morning, I answer. She doesn't respond. Either she didn't hear me, or she decided not to. Both have the same result. Aaron comes into the kitchen in gym shorts and a pressed polo shirt. Pressed. Always pressed. He pours himself coffee without asking, using my mug, the chipped one Linda bought at a gas station on a road trip in '98. He never uses his own. We need to talk later, he says, not looking at me. I nod. I always nod. Doctor stuff, he adds as if clarifying. Planning. That word again. Planning. I watch him scroll on his phone while he drinks my coffee. He grimaces slightly. Did you change the brand? No. Huh. He sets the mug down a little too hard and leaves. Melissa comes in next. Hair pulled back neatly. Makeup already done. She glances at the calendar on the fridge. Your appointment's at 11, right? Yes. You want me to come? No. She pauses. A half second too long. Well, she says carefully, it might be helpful, just to hear what the doctor says. I can hear. She gives a small, tight smile. Of course. I just meant, I know what you meant. She picks up her bag. We'll talk tonight, she says. After they leave, the house settles again, like it's exhaling. I rinse my mug and put it upside down on the towel. I notice the loose tile by the sink again. I've been meaning to fix it for 3 years. Funny how you stop repairing things once people start discussing whether you should still be allowed to live in them. I go into the living room and sit in my chair. The leather is cracked where Linda used to rest her hand on the arm. The indentation is still there. Some things remember longer than people do. On the mantel is a framed photo from 2003. Melissa, at 23, cap and gown, smiling like the world was a promise instead of a negotiation. I paid $48,000 for that smile. Never regretted it. I pick up the remote. The TV turns on slowly. Too slowly, according to Aaron. He suggested replacing it last year. Technology moves on, he said. So do people. At 9:30, I put on my jacket, the same one I've had since 2010. Melissa once asked why I don't buy a new one. This one still works, I said. She looked at me like that was a personality flaw. As I locked the door behind me, I rest my hand on the frame for a second longer than necessary. I didn't know then, but that morning was the last time the house still thought I belonged to it. The sentence that split my life into before and after arrived quietly. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just a careless pause. It was Tuesday, March 14th. I know because the radio in the basement was tuned to an afternoon talk show that only airs on Tuesdays, and because the receipt for the soldering wire I bought that morning was still in my jacket pocket. $6.49 plus tax. I was downstairs trying to fix an old shortwave radio I'd owned since the 80s. It hadn't worked in years, but I kept it because throwing it away felt like admitting something was permanently broken. The basement smelled like dust, old cardboard, and faint mildew. Familiar smells. Honest ones. I had the soldering iron heating up when I heard voices through the floor vent. Melissa's voice first. Soft. Controlled. We can't keep pretending everything's fine. I paused. Iron hovering uselessly over the table. Aaron replied, lower, sharper. I know, but it has to look responsible. That word again. I turned the iron off. The click sounded too loud in the quiet basement. Melissa spoke again. Shady Grove called back. They've got availability starting April. 1-bedroom unit. Nothing fancy. And the cost? Aaron asked. $4 $800 a month, plus incidentals. I sat down slowly on the bottom step of the stairs. Aaron exhaled. That's manageable, especially if we move quickly. Move what? Paper rustled upstairs. A drawer opening maybe, or a folder. The realtor says the house should list at $850 minimum, Melissa said. But if we wait until May, we could push $900, even $950 if the market stays stupid. The word stupid carried satisfaction with it. Like the market was a fool they were happy to exploit. My hand tightened around the stair rail. Aaron chuckled. Not a big laugh. Just a pleased sound. An old man doesn't need a 4-bedroom house. There it was. Not my name. Not Dad. Just an old man. There was a pause. Long enough that I thought the conversation might end there. I almost stood up. Almost convinced myself I'd misheard. Then Melissa said it. Calmly. Practically. Like she was discussing insurance coverage or tire pressure. Dad would be safer in a nursing home. Dad. Me. I don't remember standing up. I remember sitting again. The stairs felt suddenly steeper, like they'd been replaced with something taller while I wasn't looking. Upstairs, the conversation continued, but the words blurred. Numbers floated in and out, commissions, taxes, timelines. I heard my name once more casually, without weight. They were planning my absence like a renovation. I stayed on the stairs for a long time after their voices moved away. The radio stayed broken. The solder cooled into useless gray clumps on the tip of the iron. Eventually, I went back upstairs. Slowly. Deliberately. My knees protested, but I welcomed the pain. It meant something still worked. The house looked the same. The same table. The same photo frames. The same faint stain on the kitchen counter where Melissa once spilled wine and never cleaned it properly. I poured myself a glass of water. My hand shook. Not much. Just enough to notice. At 4:12 p.m., Melissa came into the kitchen. Hey, she said, too casually. How was the basement? Dusty, I replied. She nodded. You should really be careful down there. Those stairs are steep. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't cruel. That was a problem. She was efficient. Organized. The kind of person who could justify almost anything if it fit into a plan. I've been thinking, she said, about the future. I have too, I said. She smiled, relieved. Good. That's good. Aaron came in a few minutes later. He didn't look at me. We're going to have to make some decisions soon, he said, opening the fridge. For everyone's sake. For whose sake? I asked. He closed the fridge a little too hard. Yours, obviously. Obviously. Dinner that night tasted like cardboard. Chicken, rice, steamed vegetables. Food chosen for digestion, not pleasure. I ate because stopping would have invited questions. Afterward, I went to my room and closed the door. The old lock clicked softly. It was the only lock in the house no one ever used anymore. I sat on the bed and stared at the filing cabinet. Linda used to joke about it. You keep enough paperwork to rebuild your life from scratch, she said once. I opened the top drawer. Blue folder, green folder, brown envelope with a notary stamp. Receipts, mortgage statements, renovation invoices, dates, amounts. The house was purchased in June of 1999 for $312,000. I remembered signing the papers with a pen that barely worked. The mortgage was paid off in full in October 2018. I remembered making the final payment online, staring at the screen longer than necessary. Renovations between 2009 and 2016 totaled $143,217. Roof, windows, plumbing, kitchen. I did half the labor myself to save money. My back still reminds me. Then the trust documents. 2015. The year Linda got sick. Aaron had recommended the arrangement. For convenience, he said. Estate planning. Streamlining. Melissa was named trustee. I read the clause again. Slowly. Careful. Liquidation of assets permitted if the beneficiary was deemed unable to live independently. No court order required. Just signatures. I closed the folder. The house creaked as someone walked upstairs. Aaron probably heading to bed, planning tomorrow. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. They thought I was confused. They thought I was tired. They thought I wouldn't notice. They were wrong, but not yet. Not tonight. That night I didn't sleep. I listened to the house breathe. Memorizing its sound the way you memorize a face when you know you're about to lose it. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. There is a moment after betrayal when emotion exhausts itself, not because the pain disappears, but because the body decides screaming internally is inefficient. That moment came to me the next morning at 6:03 a.m., standing in the kitchen, staring at a blinking microwave clock that still thought it was 5:56. I made coffee, same 2 scoops, same mug. Muscle memory carried me through the motions while my mind reorganized itself into something quieter, colder. Accounting mode. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't hint. I didn't test the waters. I waited. At 8:17 a.m., Melissa and Aaron left for work. She reminded me to be careful on the stairs. He reminded me to drink enough water. I waved. Then I locked the door and went to the study. The study used to be Linda's favorite room. Afternoon light. A wide desk. Enough shelves to feel like a place where decisions mattered. After she died, it became storage. Papers piled on papers. Things no one wanted to sort because sorting meant remembering. I pulled the filing cabinet into the center of the room. The sound of the drawers opening echoed louder than it should have. I started with the bank statements. Checking account, joint. Balance fluctuating between $38,000 and $45,000 depending on who paid what that month. Melissa insisted it was simpler this way. I had agreed because arguing felt heavier than signing. Savings account, $18,412. Slowly shrinking. Quiet withdrawals here and there. Groceries. Utilities. House stuff. Investment account. The one Linda never wanted touched. Balance as of last Friday. $912,643.27. My name only. I exhaled for the first time that day. Next, the trust documents. 2015. The year hospital rooms replaced vacations. The year words like prognosis and quality of life became household vocabulary. Aaron had been helpful then. Very helpful. He'd brought printouts, highlighted sections, talked about protecting assets, simplifying inheritance, avoiding probate. I read the trust again, slowly, out loud this time. Beneficiary deemed unable to live independently. Deemed by whom? Trustee. Melissa. No medical board required. No court oversight unless contested after the fact. Efficient. I wrote down dates, names, clauses, page numbers. At 10:41 a.m. I made a list. House purchase. June 1999, $312,000. Mortgage payoff, October 2018. Renovations total, $143,217. Current estimated value, $850,000 to $950,000. They weren't guessing. They had done their homework. So would I. At 11:30, I called the bank. The woman on the line had a calm voice. Professional, not unkind. Yes, Mr. Harris. The investment account is solely in your name. Are there any restrictions on liquidation? No, sir. Any requirements for trustee approval? No, sir. That word again. Sir. It felt like oxygen. At 12:02, I ate lunch standing up. Soup from a can. I didn't taste it. At 12:47, I called an attorney. I didn't use Aaron's recommendation. I searched for someone local. Estate law. No flashy website. Just a phone number and a name. Daniel Price answered himself. I told him the facts, not the feelings. He didn't interrupt. Can they sell the house without your consent? I asked. If the trust is activated under incapacity. Yes. And am I incapacitated? Silence. Then no. I smiled. What would you like to do? He asked. I looked around the study. At Linda's desk. At the shelf where her books still leaned against each other like they were whispering. I'd like to stay solvent, I said. And conscious. He chuckled softly. That's a good starting position. We scheduled a meeting for Thursday at 9:00 a.m. After the call, I sat still for a long time. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't panic. This was inventory. At 3:15 p.m., Melissa came home early. She hovered in the doorway of the study. You okay in here? Fine. She glanced at the papers spread across the desk. Organizing, she asked casually. Yes. She nodded. Good. It's probably time. She didn't ask what I was organizing. She didn't want to know. That night, Aaron talked about interest rates. Melissa talked about dinner plans. I nodded. I smiled. I washed my plate. At 11:22 p.m., when the house finally slept, I opened the laptop and transferred copies of every document to a flash drive. Names, dates, amounts. I labeled the folder simply. Clarity. Before bed, I stood in the hallway and looked at the walls, at the framed photos, at the corners where paint met trim imperfectly because I'd done it myself and never quite mastered straight lines. They thought I was tired. They thought I was slow. They thought confusion would make me compliant. What they didn't understand is this. I built my life by knowing exactly what I had, what I owed, and what I refused to give away. And I was done giving things away, quietly. That night, for the first time since Linda died, I slept without dreaming. Not because I was at peace, but because my mind was finally doing something useful again. Thursday morning arrived without drama. No thunder. No sudden clarity from the sky. Just rain. Steady, patient, tapping against the windows like it had nowhere else to be. I left the house at 8:12 a.m., earlier than usual. Melissa was already gone. Aaron's car was still in the driveway, but the lights were off. I didn't announce myself. I didn't need permission. The drive to Daniel Price's office took 17 minutes. I know because I counted traffic lights the way I used to count steps on factory floors when time needed structure. His office smelled faintly of old books and coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. A good smell. Honest. Daniel read everything again. Slower this time. Pen tapping softly against the desk. They're preparing to act, he said. Yes. And they think you won't. Yes. He looked at me. Really looked. You understand this will change the temperature of your family. I understand it already has. That earned a nod. We didn't talk about feelings. We talked about mechanics. At 9:43 a.m., I signed the first authorization. Liquidation of the investment account. Partial, not full. Clean. Efficient. Amount. $900,000. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Leaving a cushion? I don't like empty rooms, I said. Wire transfer scheduled for Monday. Taxes calculated conservatively. No shortcuts. At 10:18, we discussed housing. Do you want to wait? Daniel asked. No. At 10:47, He slid a list across the desk. Condos, small houses, rentals, nothing fancy. Ownership, without explanation. At 11:05, I shook his hand. Call me if anything changes, he said. Something already has. On the drive home, the rain stopped. The house greeted me the same way it always did. Neutral, indifferent. Aaron was in the kitchen, laptop open, headphones in. You're back early, he said, pulling one ear cup off. Appointment ended. With who? Myself. He frowned slightly, then shrugged. We should sit down this weekend. Talk about next steps. Next steps? I repeated. Yes. Long-term planning. Good idea. He smiled, relieved. Misreading is a dangerous luxury. Over the next few days, I became invisible by design. I didn't interfere. I didn't correct. I didn't argue. I watched. Melissa printed brochures from Shady Grove and left them on the counter, face up. Pictures of smiling gray-haired couples playing cards. Words like comfort and community in soft fonts. Aaron made phone calls in the garage. I caught fragments, timing the listing. Market still hot. Can't wait forever. They spoke about me like I was weather. Monday came. At 10:06 a.m., my phone buzzed. Daniel, it's done. The wire had cleared. I sat down. Not because my legs failed, because my mind wanted a chair. $900,000 now lived somewhere else. Somewhere Melissa couldn't simplify. Somewhere Aaron couldn't optimize. At 11:40, I toured a condo. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. 2nd floor, quiet, clean. No stairs inside. A balcony just wide enough for a chair and a cup of coffee. The realtor talked too much. I tuned her out. I looked at the locks, the windows, the light. At 12:15, I signed a lease. 1 year, renewable. At 1:02, I paid the deposit. First and last month. No joint account. No discussion. At home that evening, Melissa was excited. Good news, she said. Shady Grove has an opening earlier than expected. I nodded. That's great, she continued. It'll make everything smoother. Smoother for whom? Aaron chimed in. We're just thinking about your safety. Of course, I said. That night, I packed slowly. Not everything. Just essentials. Clothes. Papers. The radio still broken. Linda's scarf from the winter, she lost her hair. The chipped mug. On Wednesday, while they were both at work, I hired a locksmith. He arrived at 2:30 p.m. A quiet man. Efficient. No questions. Just these doors, he asked. All exterior locks, I said. By 3:15, the house had new keys. I left a note on the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic. Just facts. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. Some decisions don't need witnesses. By the time they realized money had moved, the house already knew who it belonged to again. And for the first time in a long while, I walked into my future without asking anyone if it was convenient. They came home at 6:18 p.m. I know, because the new lock made a sound I didn't recognize yet, sharper, cleaner. The old one had always complained before giving in. The key didn't turn. Aaron tried again. Harder. What the hell? Melissa stood behind him, grocery bags hanging from her arms. Confusion already turning into irritation. Dad, she called out. Did you lock the door? I opened it from the inside. Yes. They froze. Not dramatically. Just enough to register that something fundamental had shifted. Aaron's eyes went straight to the lock. Professionals always look for mechanisms first. What is this? He demanded. A door, I said, with a new lock. Melissa stepped forward. This isn't funny. I'm not joking. She laughed once. A short, nervous sound. Okay, very cute. Can you let us in? You are inside, I said. Just not here. Aaron pushed past her. You can't do this. This is our house. No, I said. It's not. The hallway felt narrower than usual. Or maybe they had grown louder. Melissa dropped the grocery bags. An apple rolled across the floor and stopped near the baseboard Linda had installed herself. You're confused, she said carefully. We talked about this. You agreed we'd handle things. I agreed to nothing, I replied. Aaron pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. Good, I said. I already have. That stopped him. What? At 5:52, I added. Non-emergency line. Ask them to come by. Clarify ownership. Silence settled in the space between us. Dense. Melissa's voice dropped. Dad, please. Please what? She swallowed. Don't make this worse. I looked at her, at the daughter I'd taught to ride a bike, at the woman who had just planned my disappearance with a calendar and a brochure. This is the best it's been all week, I said. The police arrived at 6:41. 2 officers. Calm, polite, used to family messes. Aaron talked first. Fast, confident. Words like trust and concern and elderly care came out smoothly. Melissa nodded along. I waited. When it was my turn, I handed over copies. Deed, mortgage payoff, trust, dissolution, bank confirmation. The younger officer raised his eyebrows. The older one read quietly. This property is solely owned by Mr. Harris, he said finally. There's no eviction notice here. Aaron's face changed. Not anger. Calculation giving way to panic. That's not possible, he said. There's a trust. There was, I said. Melissa stared at me. What did you do? I remembered who I was. The officers exchanged a look. This is a civil matter, the older one said. But as of now, you don't reside here. Aaron's voice cracked. We have things inside. You can collect essentials tomorrow, I said, with supervision. Melissa shook her head slowly. You planned this? Yes. You lied to us. No, I said. I stopped explaining myself. They left shortly after. Not together. Aaron stormed out first. Phone already pressed his ear. Melissa lingered. She looked smaller without the house backing her up. Where are you going to go? She asked. I thought about the balcony, the quiet, the lock that turned when I wanted it to. I already went, I said. Her eyes filled, but I didn't move. You didn't even talk to me, she whispered. I listened, I said. You didn't. She left without another word. That night, the house sounded different, not empty, settled. I sat at the kitchen table, my table, and drank coffee from the chip mug. The stain near the sink still looked the same, but it didn't bother me anymore. At 9:03 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. You destroyed our future. I deleted it without replying, because the truth is simpler. They didn't lose a future. They lost a plan that required me to disappear quietly, and I was done being quiet. The condo smells like nothing. No old wood, no memories baked into the walls. Just clean paint and quiet air. At first, that bothered me. Silence without history can feel like abandonment. But after a few days, I understood the difference. This wasn't emptiness. It was neutrality, a place that didn't already have an opinion about me. I wake up here at 5:47 a.m. too. Some things don't change just because the address does. The balcony faces east. At that hour, the sun creeps in slowly, hesitant, like it's checking whether it's welcome. I sit in a folding chair with my coffee and watch the light move across the neighboring rooftops. No one tells me I should be careful. No one asks if I remember my pills. I remember. On the third day, I unpack the radio. It still doesn't work. I place it on the small table by the window anyway. Some things earn the right to stay broken. Melissa doesn't call. Aaron sends 2 more messages. Longer this time. Legal language mixed with accusation. Words like entitlement and coercion appear, as if repeating them might make them true. Daniel handles it. They're fishing, he tells me over the phone. They won't bite. Good, I say. I don't like noise. The house sells 2 weeks later. Not my house. Theirs. They bought a place on the edge of town. Smaller. Mortgaged. I hear this through a mutual acquaintance who still talks to both sides and pretends neutrality is a virtue. Shady Grove never calls back. I imagine the brochure still sitting in a drawer somewhere. Smiling people playing cards, waiting for someone else's father. On Friday afternoons, I walk to the small grocery store 3 blocks away. The clerk learns my name by the second visit. Same bread? She asks. Yes. She smiles like that's enough information about me. It is. One afternoon, I take out the flash drive, labeled Clarity, and delete it. Not because the facts are gone, because I no longer need to prove them to myself. Linda would have liked this place, I think. Not the building, the choice. She used to say dignity wasn't about comfort. It was about consent. I consent to my days now, to when I wake, to when I sit, to when I remember. On a Sunday evening, I get a call from Melissa. Her voice sounds unfamiliar, thinner. "Dad," she says. "Yes. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." "I did." A pause. "Then we're trying to help." "No," I say gently. "You were trying to manage." "That's not." "It is." Silence stretches between us, long enough to let honesty breathe if it wants to. "You could have talked to me," she says finally. "I listen," I reply. "You spoke when you thought I couldn't hear." She starts to cry. Real tears this time. Not strategic. "I don't know how to fix this," she says. "You don't," I answer. "You live with it." The call ends without resolution. I don't feel victorious. I feel aligned. Weeks pass. Then months. I buy a better chair for the balcony, a sturdier mug. I replace the loose tile in the condo bathroom myself, just to remind my hands they still know how to solve problems. One morning while tightening the last screw, I realize something quietly astonishing. No one has asked me to justify my existence in weeks. No one has suggested a safer option. No one has mentioned planning. I sit down on the floor, back against the wall, and laugh. Just once, softly, at nothing in particular. The money sits where it should, untouched, patient. It doesn't define me, but it obeys me. That's the difference. Sometimes, late in the evening, I think about the house, the hallway, the stain near the sink. I don't miss it. I miss the man I was when I thought love required submission. That man is gone. What remains is quieter, smaller, harder to move, but it's mine. And when I turn the key in my door each night and hear the lock answer only to me, I know something they never understood. I didn't change the locks to keep them out. I changed them to let myself stay in.